Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for sitting down with us. My first question is, do you ever feel like what happened? You have a pending lawsuit against the toll project, budget amendment to delay tolls until January 2014. Now we have calls for possible federal action against the project dealing with the NAACP and ACLU. Where did your plan go wrong to create such consternation in the community?
Well, actually, this is a welcome to the world of transportation projects, any major transportation project. I mean, we face suits pretty much, and you know, controversy when you look at most of these projects. The larger the project, the more, I'm going to say, community support, opposition, whichever. And so you have to just try to work through each one of these. I mean, this project has been around, as you know, well over 20 years. In fact, back in 1998, I believe you were around and reporting on it when a similar proposal came forward to try to build a new Midtown tunnel with the same general scope. That project ended up being defeated. And then the region and VDOT worked for almost 5 years on this most recent project. We followed all the processes, opened this up to all different types of public participation, outreach to local governments, outreach to local officials. We announced the deal. In fact, I mean, most of this ended up happening before we even walked into office. In fact, the contractor, the tolls.
And yet so many people seem taken by surprise by it.
Which is the thing that, you know, from my perspective, as somebody who just walked into this, I mean, it is sort of...
You've been saying you knew what the deal was. This has been going on for a long time. You knew what the tolls would be.
Yeah, in fact, last July, I mean, so the interim agreement was signed back in January of 2010, right before we walked into office. The toll amount then was $2.86. That was presented to the region's local governments. They asked us to try to get it down to as close to $1.50 as possible. We had regular briefings both to our Commonwealth Transportation Board as well as to the TPO in Hampton Roads that outlined different ways to get down there, the things we thought we could end up affecting that toll rate. Then we announced the business terms, which included the toll amounts, when the tolls would go in, the escalation.
That was in December.
That was in July. That was then reported front page in newspaper. In fact, I think you ran a story about it. It was presented to the TPO the following day. From the day it was presented to the Commonwealth Transportation Board. It was presented to the TPO, all the mayors, elected chairs, and others. It's on their website to this day. And
so you're surprised by all of a sudden people saying, hey, what's going on here?
That's exactly right. I mean, we're sitting here going, wait a second. We announced all this in July. No one says a word. That's why we announce it in July. It was on the front page of the paper. Reports were made of. It was presented to all the local government officials.
There's a phrase, you only care about the big bad wolf when the door's coming down. And I think that we're now at a point where people are seeing what you were talking about, to give you the benefit of the doubt last year. But do you understand, for those people who are opposed to this, that what you have just said is irrelevant to them? They're saying, okay, well, we now see it. We now see what the deal is, and we've got to get a new deal. Yeah. Do you understand when people raise that concern? And it's not only people in Portsmouth and Norfolk, it's a lot of members of the House of Delegates, State Senate. What do you say to those people?
Well, basically, this is, I mean, one of the things that's interesting about what you're seeing with this project, that is going to be occurring on other projects that we're pursuing throughout the state, is that they're seeing for the first time the true cost of infrastructure. I mean, when we normally...
They don't like it. They don't like what they're hearing. They don't like the high tolls. They don't like the public-private partnership, the belief that the private partners are going to make all this money off the backs of the people paying the tolls.
Well, this is basically how you end up getting investment into these types of transportation projects right now.
And you know, some of them are saying, we don't want the investment then because we can't afford this. Yeah. I mean, Portsmouth is 59% total minority, 15% below the poverty level, and they are arguing putting the tolls on the back of people, the backs of people who had the least ability to pay.
And you know what? The city of Portsmouth supported this project right up to December.
Well, they aren't supporting it now, so
I mean,
what
I
do
have,
we do?
I mean, I'm sitting there, well, the thing is that we've got to continue pushing along with this project. It's not going to get any better. In fact, when this project was first proposed 15 years ago, the price of this tunnel was around $360 to $400 million. Now it's up to around $1 billion. And if we delay it any further, it's going to continue going up. And then finally, when the day of reckoning gets here on the tolls are going to be even higher. I mean, it just happens right now. We have the ability to put the type of money that the state is putting into this project to make it happen. And the federal government has essentially committed to approximately $400 million in a TIFIA loan that will also help offset the cost of the tolls.
Now, this was put out by Delegate Chris Jones, Republican from Suffolk, and he's saying we need to take some of the things out. We need to scale back the project to bring down the tolls. Is that an option for you?
Well, basically, this is actually this type of project where you just did the tunnel itself has been examined several times over the last 20 years. And from a system perspective, if you're looking at trying to alleviate traffic on both the downtown and the midtown, you need conductivity between the two. And that is why the MLK Boulevard rebuild is so essential to the project.
But he's saying to get that toll down, I think that in the worst case scenario, they want a toll below $1.
Well,
and that gets you there with
well,
all
the problem
the things
is,
he's proposed.
And Andy, the problem is I don't know what that number is. I was told if I got it to $1.50, people would be okay. I get it to $1.59, $1.83, they said, no, now we want $1. I don't know what the number is, okay? And the thing is,
but you buy some of these arguments that
no,
Chris Jones
actually I
has made?
don't.
You don't buy any of them?
No, I don't. When I look at what has been proposed, you end up looking at a dramatically different project, which would mean we'd have to go back to square one, and would have very little impact on the transportation and mobility in between Norfolk and Portsmouth.
They want to take you back to square one. They want to strike a new deal with these partners that scales down the scope of the project and costs less on the backs of the people who are going to have to pay these tolls. You understand where they're coming from.
Well, but see, we're talking about, I mean, this is a project and the system approach and putting in for the first time, robust transit between Portsmouth and Norfolk. It's all about moving people and increasing mobility. This is actually a step back from trying to do that. And so when we throw out numbers of $1 or whatever, we have no idea what they're proposing here would get you to $1.
Well, he's saying you can scale back the scope, you don't do the extension, you have VDOT doing the maintenance.
So which way, as you know, I'm right now running a $500 million a year deficit in my maintenance account. I mean, at some point, folks have to understand that when you look at the state's financial resources to move forward on projects, it is right now extremely limited. And in fact, we are transferring at least $500 million a year from our construction account over to our maintenance account. And so when you look at the opportunity, in fact, one of the things that he wants to strike here is the actual rehab of the existing tunnels. And that kind of gives you an idea about one of the challenges the state's been facing, is that the state has not been putting the money into the rehab.
Because they've been waiting for the project to take effect so that they will wrap up all of that rehab in the money that's going to be raised for this
actually,
project.
I think a great deal of it actually has to do with the fact that we didn't have the resources to put into into rehabbing it and making sure that they, that we kept them up to the greatest state of conditions possible.
You know that the Senate is considering in the House an amendment
Right.
that would delay tolls paid by the people until January 2014, offered by Senator Louise
Yes.
Lucas. What do you think about that?
Well, it's something
Does that seem reasonable?
Actually, it's something we've been working with them on. And in fact, it is something that we've had a very positive dialogue with the members of the Senate on. And we're working to make sure that the language they put forward is actually one that does not violate the Constitution.
Yeah, because you've raised a lot of constitutional questions.
Well, in fact,
what would change in order to make it constitutional?
there was one sentence in here. There was one sentence in here that they added that essentially said that you could not toll until the strategy was worked out. And it's just the way it was worded. That was the only sentence in this that we believe renders this unconstitutional.
So you all are going, the administration's going along with that?
We're working with the Senate and the House on the budget. No final decision has been made by the governor or any of the conferees or by either end of the General Assembly, but it's been something that we have been working with them to try to resolve some of the issues and some of the concerns that have been raised.
So you will not raise constitutional objections to kill the deal with the January 2014 start date for tolls?
If the language in this is revised, it's something that we would end up looking at.
Interesting.
And this is not the only thing that we're looking at.
What else are you looking at?
We're looking at several other things
Give
to
me
help.
some news.
Andy, you know, we'll make sure you'll get it first.
No, give me first here. I want
No,
to
we
know.
are looking at other things to try to help and address some of the concerns in Portsmouth and Norfolk on everything from the tolls and how they're collected on locals. I mean, there's some things that we can do to help make this and address some of the concerns that have been raised.
Easy Pass, that's been a big concern, that it's unfair for poor people because they don't have credit cards or bank accounts, and so they're going to have to pay more because they may not have a transponder.
Well, I mean,
What do you
this
do
is
about that?
again, we're going to work with ERC, our Elizabeth Rivers Crossings, a private partner, and we will end up working with them to help make sure that we get easy passes out to everybody, makes it as easy as possible.
Do you understand Ken Alexander's lawsuit, where he's raising the question whether your whole deal is even constitutional? That you have unelected people from VDOT and ERC, Elizabeth River Crossings, raising tolls on the people, taxes and fees. You have to be elected in order to do that, according to the Supreme Court. The question is a toll a tax? And they're saying that it is, and they will argue. Patrick McSweeney is going to be bringing this lawsuit. Are you concerned about that?
No, not really. I mean, I think
But
actually,
you understand why people are really upset that you have unelected people implementing this. This is not done by the House of Delegates or the Senate. This is not done by the House of Delegates or the Senate. It's being done by unelected people.
this was unelected people who have been authorized by the General Assembly and by a law signed by the governor to collect user fees. And we have several.
But the lawsuit was that even though the General Assembly gave the HRTA the authority to do that back in 2008, it's still unconstitutional because they cannot absolve the responsibility to give these people who are unelected the right to raise taxes. And by the way, the people on the HRTA that was deemed to be unconstitutional were elected members of the community.
No,
but they
that
had
was
not been elected to do that.
Yeah, well, that's a very different issue. What happened, and by the way, it is sort of interesting that the lawyer that led the effort to shoot down the regional taxes that could have potentially paid for this project is the one that will be representing, saying that even tolls are bad. And so the thing is...
But they're saying it's unconstitutional. Did you
No, but the lawsuit was about the Transportation Authority actually being able to implement taxes on their own.
And they say unconstitutional.
Right. And actually here is what this is a user fee. It's very clearly a user fee.
User fee, tax, toll.
No. It is a user fee. Well, if you start going down that tact, then paying, you know, a DMV license fee or whichever.
That's what he's going to argue. He's going to argue that this is a tax and that a toll is a tax and taxes cannot be implemented by unelected people.
These are user fees. I mean, it's very clearly. In fact, if you take that tact, then the Midtown and downtown tunnels were built illegally because they were essentially built with tolls that were put forward by then the Elizabeth River Commission, right? I mean, and if you start to go down that tact, then all toll roads and toll authorities in the Commonwealth are all then illegal.
There's been a lot out there about the financial agreement, that the deal is not complete because is it the governor who signs it or the Secretary of Finance?
No, neither. Actually, the one who signs is the commissioner.
You.
The Virginia, our VDOT commissioner.
Who is Worley?
Greg Worley.
Greg Worley. So Greg Worley signs this deal. It has not been signed yet.
Yes, it has been signed.
When was it signed?
No, the agreement has been signed.
The agreement has been signed, but the final financial agreement has not been signed.
The financial close has not been signed, but we have a valid contract that has as part of the contractual elements is a financial close within 210 days.
Right, but because the financial close has not been signed, you still have the ability to change the deal.
No, actually, the deal is a valid contract. And we always will have the ability to alter and amend the contract upon agreement, a mutual agreement of the two parties.
How would this is the termination for convenience, that you always had the ability to walk away. I'm saying you,
Yep.
you're the,
Yep.
you had the termination for convenience. Why not implement that, go back to ground zero and start again?
Well, then what? Okay, so the issue is that what do you come back with?
Lower tolls at least?
Well, what
Scale
number?
down project according to Chris Jones?
Okay, you come back with a scale down project with a $1.25 tolls. Is that okay?
Dollar?
$1
Less than a
tolls.
dollar?
I don't know. I mean, we were told $1.50. We were told, if you look at all the different work that has gone on behind this, I mean, this is not about just simply plucking numbers out of the air.
How would that play out, the termination for clause, the termination for convenience? How
Well,
would
actually, we ended up negotiating to make sure that this gets in there, because at any point during the construction or the operations and long-term maintenance of the project, if there was a reason for the Commonwealth to want to take the concession back and take control of the assets, we wanted to have that ability to do so. Essentially, it's a clause to protect ourselves.
Do you anticipate ever enforcing that?
Well, we don't see a reason for doing so. The thing is that you put these types of clauses in it so that in the future, if something were to happen, you would have the ability to do so. But if you do so on the termination of convenience, obviously you have to pay damages and penalties.
I mean, a lot of people in Hampton Roads are calling for the termination of this, even though it may cost us $12 to $15 million. Walk away, get a new deal, because I mean, one of the things that people are concerned about are the price of the tolls. That the tolls are going to be implemented even before any construction begins.
Right.
3 or 4 years before we had the Midtown Tube. There's going to be no tube at the downtown tunnel. There's going to be an average return for the ERC no more than 13.5% return, which is an amazing return in today's economic condition for the private partners.
Well,
and a provision that allows the tolls to be raised 3.5% every year after it's complete. Is that really a good deal?
Yeah, it actually is a very fair deal. If you end up looking, let's go back with the 3.5%. My cost of operations and maintenance for the state goes up 4%. That's why I'm running a $500 million a year deficit. 4% statewide. Secondly, the 13.5% only applies to the equity they're putting in the cash. That, by the way, is standard for, I mean, in fact, if you look at equity worldwide, it's somewhere between 10 and 22% rate of return for pension funds or anyone else investing in these types of projects. 13.5 is on the low end for equity, for whether, so it's showing that's a less risk than some of the more, the higher ends. But the thing is that you got to think about it is that they are undertaking complete assumption of all risks on this project. If the project ends up being like your HRT Tide and being 100% over cost, that's their problem, not ours. We have a limit on how much they can charge, and we have an escalation clause that's based on operations and maintenance. They only have the ability to make money on this if they have revenues after they pay operations, pay maintenance, they pay their private activity bond holders back, they pay the federal government back. Then after all that, whatever money's left over, they can end up then having the potential to make up to 13.5% on the $300 million in cash that they put into it. And anything above that, we then do, revenue share.
Over the course of this, which is what, 58
years.
58 years. Tolls will be in place for 58 years.
Yeah.
I've heard the number $1 billion, that the ERC could make $1 billion at the end of that 58 years. Do you think that's high?
Actually, over a 58-year deal, investing $300 million. And net present value, it's not that much.
So
money.
it could be a lot more. They could make billions off that 300.
They could. It all depends, and we could end up, depending if they make that much, we're going to be pulling money back in as well.
How does that work? That you pull money back in? Because no one thinks that these people are going to walk away not making money. Of course they're going to make
that's
money
exactly
because
right.
that's why they're in business.
That's right.
The question is they're making all this money in a very public venture on the backs of the people paying the tolls.
They are paying, I mean, essentially they are investing. In fact, they'll become when we get this project underway, they will probably become one of the largest investors in Hampton Roads. In fact, when you look around down in Hampton Roads and look at economic development and people you have coming in, they are going to invest over $300 million of their own cash, as well as selling bonds and actually taking out loans to make this happen.
Because they know they're going to make so much money. I mean, there's 40,000 cars to the Midtown Tunnel today.
Right.
100,000 cars. That's 140,000 cars.
Well,
I mean, on a good day during, you know, July and August, they're going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars.
and the issue is that they're going to make money because they're going to invest in this transportation infrastructure that is going to increase mobility, because right now your region is choking in traffic. And the thing is when we look at the costs of all the transportation improvements down there, I mean, this project is the cheaper project. I mean, if you end up looking at, let's just say we're looking at the tube, a new tube for the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, that's $5.5 billion. People have been asking about this third crossing, Patriots Crossing. Our estimates on that is $3.7 billion. We have the 460 project, that's $1.5 billion. We have the Dominion Boulevard, that's $400 million. We have 64 improvements, they're going to be about $3 billion. Okay.
And this is $2.1 billion.
Yeah, so this is the cheapest project, and we can actually do it now.
Why is it that the governor refuses to take the money away from the 460 project, the $500 million that's there now, and put it to pay down the tolls on the Midtown and downtown tunnels?
Because
why does he refuse to do that? What is it about 460 that you won't take the money away from that project to pay down the tolls on this one?
Because 460 is actually the cheapest alternative for us for running an east-west connector to Hampton Roads. All right, so if I want to get from Norfolk up to Richmond on an interstate, I have the opportunity to spend $3.7 billion for Patriots Crossing, $5.5 billion for another tube on either the Monterey-Mac and the HRBT, and another $3 billion on 64. Or I could do $1.5 billion for a 55-mile interstate grade road, essentially between Suffolk and south of Petersburg.
How many jobs with VDOT will be lost in this project?
Oh, I think there's a...
One more minute.
I think actually we're going to convert over, I think it's about 200 jobs that are associated with these, with the tunnels currently.
Okay, final question. So VDOT's going to lose jobs in this?
Well, they're going to be given the opportunity. In fact, ERC is committed that they will and give the current workers first right of refusal. We have contractors on there.
I'm going to try this one more time, just so that you can settle the arguments for the people down there. That this is an unfair deal, that it is raising tolls on people before we eat. We've never done that before. This is the first time it's ever been done.
Actually, that's not true.
Oh.
To build these facilities, you did it.
That you raise tolls.
Yeah, you built the downtown tunnel with tolls.
No, but you have a tolls. No, you have a toll, and you don't have any lane expansion in the downtown too. And that's where all the
You
cars
did that for the downtown to help build the midtown. Yeah, the history of it is we built the downtown tunnel first, collected tolls there, then we ended up actually using the tunnel, the tolls from there to help build the midtown. And then we took the tolls from the midtown and downtown to build the second tube on the downtown. If they were still collecting tolls from these facilities, we would then use those toll amounts to help pay for the second tunnel.
Last question. Are people down in Hampton Roads being unreasonable in their opposition to what you plan to do?
I think people, when you end up looking at, in reality, about the improvements it's going to make at the cost it's going to impose, that they, in the long term, will come to realize is a very good investment for them and for the region. Because what we're trying to do is get as many projects done as possible to deal with some significant transportation. But I need for folks to think about this, okay? We right now are dealing with toll facilities in Northern Virginia, where we have dramatically more in Northern Virginia, dramatically more in Richmond. And actually, the one region in the state that really has very few is Hampton Roads. And we're looking at in fact, yesterday I was up talking about the Dulles Rail project, where we're looking at the potential for these tolls to go to $4.50 to $6.25 each way on that facility to pay for, you know, this Dulles Rail project. And we're trying to figure out how do we deal with that. And then we have down here where we have tolls at $1.59 and $1.84. And the thing is that you know, when you look at the costs of mega projects, every one of them are going to involve some tolling from here on out. We see declining tax revenues from gasoline taxes. We look at the ever-increasing costs that are involved. I mean, even North Carolina, which has dramatically higher gasoline tax than we do in Virginia, is looking at a new bridge going out to, I guess, Ocracoke. $500 million project. They are going to impose tolls to build that facility. I mean, this is how you built your facilities, the bridge tunnels down there previously, and this is going to be how it's going to have to be out into the future.
But it's choking. I mean, the part about the ACLU and the Justice Department is that this is putting up a wall, and that people have to go through these tunnels in order to go to their jobs, to get medical treatment, to go to school. And they're there, and they have to go through the Midtown and downtown tunnels. And it's unfair to them because you're imposing a toll on the only way they can get across the Elizabeth River.
Listen, I mean, every one of the transportation facilities we have in your region is charged for, with the exception of driving. Okay, it costs you $1.50 to get on the Tide. It takes you $1.50 to be on the ferry from Portsmouth to Norfolk. It costs you a couple bucks to be on take our bus system down there. I mean, and what we're asking here is that you will get increased mobility, you'll get increased bus service, you'll get save over 30 minutes a day at $4 a gallon. You won't be sitting there parked for 2 to 3 miles every single day, and with all the environmental impacts of that. And you know, this issue on, I mean, in fact, I even have to have a copy of a letter that the mayor of Portsmouth ended up sending to U.S. Department of Transportation in support of this contract and in support of this deal of last year. All right? And so there's some of these issues about how this is going to impact their community. In fact, this letter from the mayor last May ended up very clearly saying all the positive impacts this is going to have on the city of Portsmouth.
But I don't think he knew what the toll was going to be at the time. And this was March of 2011.
This is actually when the proposed toll was $2.86. Okay? This is our trouble in helping come to grips with this issue down there, is that when we have all the local elected officials, we follow the process, we follow the federal and the state planning processes, we get all types of inputs, we hold public meetings, and now we're at the point of execution. And the thing is that folks, this is going to be something that in the long term that is going to be very positive to not just the communities in Norfolk and Portsmouth, but for the entire region.
Tell me something you're doing in addition to bring down the tolls from $1.
We're working on a couple different things, and we'll let
Tell
you know.
me what they are.
I can't tell you right now, Andy, until they're finalized. My boss has to sign off on it before I do end up making any sort of announcement.
Thank you very much.
Take care, Andy.
Thank you. Last thing is, as you're taking the mic off, what about tourists who come in who don't have the transponder? I mean, it's kind of unfair to them.
Well, it's they'll have the opportunity to do video tolling, and we're going to try to do.
But the toll would then cost like what, $6?
No. There is some sort of fee associated. But we're gonna, these are all things we're going to work out, and we'll have a little bit extra time.
Do you see any more money coming in for to pay that down through the bond process? I mean, is that the Garvey bonds that we're talking about?